Far out. How good was this? G'day folks, it's Michael, welcome back. 2018 was undoubtedly a special moment in time for Monster Hunter and its players. With 2025 and some turbulence for Monster Hunter behind us, this weekend marks another year since an incredible story. A story of transformation for what was an obscure franchise flying under the West's radar for years, becoming a culturally significant industry giant amidst a booming and competitive gaming market, with Monster Hunter World. My part in this story dates back years to when I somehow stumbled across MH3 for the Wii my family owned at the time. As a kid, I was on an island, a deserted island perhaps, playing and talking about this game that nobody at school had ever heard of, with everyone commonly playing Pokemon, Skyrim, or Modern Warfare 2 around this time. 3U was actually already out by the time I picked the series up, but I didn't know it even existed because I had only just figured out how to connect up to the internet to explore Loch Lac and High Rank after spending around 500 hours just free hunting around Moga Village. I later played 4U and actually sold my game and 3DS so that I could put the money towards buying World and building my first PC. I actually ended up contacting the guy I sold it to and buying back my old console and game years later, still with my original saves intact. Shout out to you, dude. You're an absolute legend. World arrived, and as an older player, it was this sort of relief and affirmation that something I had so much investment in and enjoyment with for such a long time on my own was now being realized and shared by so many other people out there. It was awesome. Everyone was playing MH, and I remember coming home from school and starting to use Twitch for the first time so that I could watch folks like Man vs. Game, Laced Up Lauren, Maximilian Dude, and Excessive Profanity among many others, all playing MH throughout the year, and then later building my first PC for the Steam release in August. My thanks to all of you for the great entertainment way back when. With all that has happened with Wilds recently and this base game coming to a close, I wanted to step away from Wilds for a quick break and make a visit back to base World to reminisce on something that I think encapsulates so much of that special and memorable experience all those years ago. Something that was instrumental in building this special story, and something you could say was the cornerstone of the new world and this new chapter for Monster Hunter, Astera. Now, I know I wasn't on an island being in the right place at the right time for World's launch. However, in my short time making videos, I have been very conscious about whether anybody out there will even find a video from me, let alone spend time watching it. It's been humbling having my doubts and cynicism be unfounded with the amount of support I have received so far, as just someone who really was just happy being a viewer. So I just want to say thank you for everything so far. With all that said, let's talk about Monster Hunter and dive into what made Astera so special. Something we talk about a lot with culturally significant games is the idea of immersion, and the impact that can have on us as the culmination and advancement of interactive art. Despite its shortcomings, something World really prioritized was its world building and environmental storytelling, something the older games had already been leaning into for many years at this point. On launch, Astera and World as a whole felt like a massive online destination for so many like-minded folks from all over the world to meet up and see what all the fuss was about. I mentioned in the in-game video that even though there are real conversations to be had about World from a gameplay perspective with regards to performance, content, in-game, difficulty, a lot of the things folks have been critical of with Wilds, mind you, I get the feeling that so many people were just happy to be here, playing together and grinding the content that was on offer, because this environment that had been built for us was just an awesome place to be. Here at the lookout above the smithy, you can actually see where the ancient forest connects up to the Wildspire Wastes. And this was a really big step for the series that we have seen continued through to Wilds, where they have seemingly dialed this up to 11 with major performance consequences. There is of course a balance to be had if you're going to do something like this, with performance often coming at the cost of immersive elements. And although at the time World was not a gold standard for optimization on console or PC, I think what they did here with opening up the world a bit more in this way worked really well. Players have been happy with having hub areas, posting quests, and loading into different locales across this awesome fantasy setting for over 20 years now. And we have seen with Wilds that when you get too over your skis trying to interconnect areas and open up the environment too much, you have to start asking if that is actually worth it when you can do something like this and still provide a similar feeling to players. The locales themselves have already had their size increased so much, and a lot more work has been put into their ecology starting from World, and it feels more than adequate to show that this is one interconnected world without actually rendering all of it, and you just load into these new and really immersive areas just as you had done prior to World, without a huge performance hit. They also did something like this on the border of the ancient forest with the gate where you first enter and have your encounter with the field team leader and Anjanath, where Astera does visibly connect up to the ancient forest, even though they are still separate zones. If you go out of bounds up here, it's not loaded in properly, of course, and this makes sense. The idea is to add to the world building without compromising too heavily on what the game is doing from a performance standpoint. Clever choices like this, with a good balance between scale, impact, and functionality, are so important when you're trying to build a memorable and believable setting. This lookout is one of my favorite spots that has nothing functional up here. It's just here for some great views with the ancient tree in the distance looking down upon it all. Just great stuff. Coming down to the smithy, this is where the magic happened, and I remember coming in here for the first time and just being so wowed at what they had built for us. With everything being scaled up, the Astera smithy really reminded me of previous larger online areas like the Dundorma and Loch Lac smithies, but put into a single-player zone for the first time. In a number of the single-player hubs and villages prior, the smithy had often been quite a humble corner of those areas with a main NPC and a shopkeeper to buy gear. Functionally, that is still the case here, but just like in those bigger online areas, there was a whole team of folks building shit in the background here. The conveyor belt was constantly bringing out equipment to power the commission and their research, and NPCs were bringing in supplies to keep the operation going. I got a much stronger sense here than prior games that I was a part of this greater operation that could quite feasibly exist and carry on without me. And that was really fun walking in here and seeing that operation at work in real time. One of the big themes throughout World and its albeit bare bones plot is this idea of research. That we are being sent to assist with this operation and exploration of this new landmass. Honestly, that seems to me like all you really need to facilitate a game like Monster Hunter. These themes of unknown and adventure within these awesome environments are seemingly more than adequate to get folks interested and then hooked on what is a very simple and powerful gameplay loop. And you can see the emphasis on these very themes with certain points of interest across Astera. Here near the smithy, near the trade yard with all the botanists and ecologists, and here near the commander mapping out the new world. They even made an effort to have a dedicated research area for the most recent captured monster to just hang out and sleep, with the exact part breaks or lost tail that occurred during that hunt. They did a great job of just filling Astera with simple assets like this, with books, maps, notes, monster materials, equipment, food, NPCs and hunters that all contribute to the believability of this setting and its scale. On the topic of food, enjoying a meal, downtime, and relaxation have also been very big themes throughout Monster Hunter's history. And stepping up here to the canteen, we really saw a lot of effort go into showing players how important eating before your quests was, with a new ingredient system and some now very famous and iconic cutscenes. The presentation was just great here, and this very rustic and almost primitive theme throughout a lot of Astera was built into this canteen. The Meowscular chef and his sous chefs were out here cooking up a storm, and the attention to detail with the animation work and how the food looked was just awesome. Wilds clearly took a lot of its inspiration to attempt even more realistic food from World, and even though older games have all had fun obsessions with food, I think we may have peaked here with Astera's canteen. Aside from the logistical issues of needing to get here from various points across the area before each hunt. Just like food, the hunters' quarters and housing have also persisted as interactive and immersive elements across many of the games. Before Iceborne came along and really dialed up the amount of microtransactions with the amount of cosmetics you could buy for your home in Celiana, Astera and Base World gave you the choice of 3 different house areas that you unlocked and were able to then customize with the various endemic life you would find out in the field. The private suite was awesome, and I remember sitting out here near the pond just enjoying the atmosphere many times back years ago. It was a bit too extravagant for my tastes though, and my personal favorite was here in the private quarters. It was really nice to have options like this again after coming from 4U, where your house was a tiny little compartment of the airship. And even though there was really no functionality with the house here in World, I very much appreciated the attention to detail here. It took me back to my days in Loch Lac for sure. I've tried to abstain from too many comparisons to Wilds in this video and any drama between Monster Hunter games, but I will just say quickly that for all the emphasis on the open world and endemic life in Wilds, it is weird that there is no place like a house to actually display endemic life after World had set the groundwork for that years prior. I feel like this was a really cool little feature that they didn't have to include but chose to anyway as part of this focus on immersion they were going for here with World. If you look outside, you can see what appear to be other rooms like yours that presumably are the quarters of other hunters and NPCs. And you can also see where this room connects up to the bridge and waterfall area up near the smithy. Even though I didn't spend a ton of time here in the Hunter's Quarters because the equipment box wasn't constrained to your quarters like in many prior games, I really appreciated what was on offer here. Unlocks through gameplay, customizable cosmetics without microtransactions, yet, and a way to integrate with this little system that had been built with dynamic conditions out in the field and endemic life. Great stuff. Outside here we can see these massive chains and platforms hauling supplies between all the different levels of Astera and the Gathering Hub. I want to address the gamut in the room while I'm here and just say that I completely agree that logistically speaking, Astera was a more annoying area to traverse because of its scale. There were a lot of points of interest that you would commonly need to visit in between hunts. The canteen, harvest box, smithy, elder melder, argosy, shop, the investigation and bounty manager, a ton of different things spread across a big area. No doubt this caused a lot of annoyance for players, and commonly folks would forget to eat or speak to a certain NPC between hunts. Different levels and elevation like this are certainly going to introduce challenges like this. Of course, we've had many more logistically sound hub and village areas since Astera and throughout the series. I don't think logistics and convenience for players are in direct conflict with creating a big, captivating area, so I completely understand this very fair frustration and critique. I'm mostly talking about vibes and the ethereal here in this video while having a bit of fun, rather than being too critical, but I didn't want to ignore what is a very valid complaint from many folks about this area. If it's any consolation, I thought a giant waterfall with massive wheels pulling chains and shit up and down was very thematic and visually impressive as a means of travel, while still being consistent with that wooden, primitive and makeshift design language throughout the whole area. Cool, but a bit of a faff around for sure. Right, with that addressed, I suppose we can take a trip down on one of these platforms to the trade yard. Down here we have most of the points of interest I just spoke about, and I think the main thing that comes to mind is how busy this area feels. Because of the annoying traversal, I think this actually kind of played a role in that too, needing to run around everywhere between NPCs and stuff. If you look a little closer though, the same attention to detail I've mentioned so far is still here, with NPCs doing all sorts of different things, contributing towards the Research Commission's operation. The scholars are getting busy writing down their notes, hunters are flying out on quests with wing drakes, and if you look out across the water, you can actually see folks down there carrying boxes at the docks, even though that area is completely inaccessible to the player. The trade yard just oozes that Monster Hunter atmosphere, being a part of a greater community or village, and that methodical grind day-to-day life would entail that is very reflective of the gameplay experience. As soon as you step through the gates, you immediately feel as though you've been brought into this larger-than-life fantasy. Something that looms over everything I've spoken about so far kicks in big time here as well: the music. And the opening cutscene does a lot of heavy lifting to set the stage as well. I'm going to let Matthew Mercer summarize a lot of what I've said so far. Take it away, good sir.
Amazing, ain't it? Just look at this gate. It's like nature meant for us to build Astera right here. You're the last to arrive. This here's our trade yard. I guess the name says it all. Incredible, right? We've got it all here. We've got hunters to do all the exploring, scholars to do the research, technicians to keep them going. This place is the beating heart of the Commission.
Now, I am not a musician or an audiophile. I am certainly no Davi Vas or Marco Meatball either. Shout out to you guys. Humbly, I am just a normal dude with a pair of ears that has been enjoying games and their soundtracks for many years now. I am a viewer, a listener, and a consumer. And I just want to quickly say thank you to all of the artists that have put so much learning, effort, time, and creative juice into their works that have somehow found their way to me and had an impact on me. I think the Capcom sound team did an amazing job here with so many tracks for World. And just like Astera, it feels as though the scale and grandness with the more orchestral style translated into a lot of the music for World as a whole. As soon as that cutscene plays and you take control of your character walking around this massive area, that iconic theme starts up with those busy, gritty notes mixed with a more calming and somber tone that creeps in as the day theme progresses, then culminating with that truly beautiful piece I highlighted to cap off the night theme. I have such great memories just enjoying the atmosphere, watching the sunset with this incredible music playing, and hanging out with friends, just feeling like, fuck yeah, Monster Hunter has finally arrived. It was unforgettable. The dynamic day and night cycle really had a big impact on how Astera felt, and what is a very simple feature had actually been absent through all of the 4th gen hubs and towns. MH2 actually established this like 20 years ago and had a whole host of mechanics built around the time of day, as well as seasons. That was then carried through to my first game, MH3, with Moga having some of those dynamic elements that I really enjoyed growing up with the series. I really appreciated that part of Astera's sound design, not just the time of day factoring in, but also if you were at a particular point in the story, if Zora Magdaros or Xenojiva were available, if the Argosy had returned, or just if there was a sale on. I remember sitting in Loch Lac and Moga just sitting there enjoying the nighttime music, as well as the different dynamic tracks that would play, whether the Argosy was in town or if Jen Moran was spotted at Loch Lac. These dynamic elements just added to the immersion and enhanced these moments of downtime between hunts here in Astera, just as they had done years prior. On the subject of online areas, this focus on dynamic elements also carried through to World's Gathering Hub. With seasonal events being introduced, there were some great soundtracks up here in the airship depending on what was going on, and I remember how awesome the environment was in online lobbies when KT was available, with the Gathering Hub being packed full of people and the unique soundtrack going. This hub felt like a perfect continuation and add-on of Astera. And funnily enough, a lot of the same critiques also still apply when it comes to logistics. Of course, you need to get up here first from the main area, and we all remember the mod we had to use to put a lot of the key NPCs up here, so we didn't have to leave the area and go between all the important facilities on the lower levels. Pretty funny stuff. I had a great time up here with friends and in online lobbies. The atmosphere and music working together, as well as some obviously great views from high up. One last thing they also chose to do within World's soundtrack that I really appreciated was to have some cross-pollination between a lot of the motifs across the different tracks. It seems as though there has been a lot more of that since World, and Astera's motif features heavily in the game's arena battle soundtrack, Pride of a Nameless Hunter, as well as the main theme for World, Stars at Our Backs. All awesome pieces of music in their own rights. It just helps the various pieces of music connect back into this very memorable setting. I remember going in to fight AT no Gigante and hearing that theme with the Stars at Our Backs motif coming in and thinking, yeah, this is the perfect send-off as the last fight of a very special game. I want to wrap up with a short story that might also be shared by some of you out there. Back in 2018 for World's PC launch, I had just cobbled together my first rig for this game, and I was mostly just playing solo, joining SOS hunts, and playing online in random lobbies. I played a lot, and as a younger guy, I wasn't focusing too much on the negatives with the game. I was just enjoying the experience, and I ended up meeting some folks in a lobby that saw me playing quite well and invited me to a Discord. I had no idea what to expect, but from that point on, we have all played pretty much every Monster Hunter title together on release over the past 8 years. I actually got to meet up with one of these dudes years later when he traveled across the ditch from Australia here to New Zealand, where we met up at a Japanese restaurant and just had lunch. You never know what avenues games can take you down, or who they can allow you to meet, or what kind of effect they can have on you. I sure as shit never thought I'd be here making this video 8 years later. Life sure is full of surprises. For many of us, Astera is our Monster Hunter home. And even though I started back in Moga, I'll always remember the story that this area helped tell. All the great times I had playing here, and the folk to Astera. I hope this has been a fun trip back down memory lane. Thank you so much for watching as always, and until next time, happy hunting guys.